Hey guys, welcome back to Pistons Talk Podcast. Happy Friday. I don't think I've ever done a podcast at 1 in the afternoon, but maybe we'll start doing it because I actually like getting the podcast out the way. We are joined by the Pindown Podcast from the Detroit Bad Boys, Blake Silverman, Wes Davenport. Fellas, welcome back to the show. It's been about 3 months.
Yeah, thanks for having us on again.
Yeah.
We were talking about it before we went on air, but the last time we talked, the team was not in the state that they are now, and we were all wrong about where they would be. So excited to talk about where the Pistons are at heading into the last stretch of this regular season.
Yeah, we couldn't be in a more different spot than when we were back on, right? Because I think that was like November, wasn't it? So now we're sitting here early in March. The vibes are totally different. Hopefully we're not bad luck now. That's our joke on our podcast.
So I'm the type of person where I go back and look. So I went back and listened to our podcast in November. And the exact date, if you want to know, was November 15th. The Pistons were 6-8 during that time. So the first segment is actually perfect. It kind of rolls into like what we were talking about. So I wanted to ask both of you, what do you think has changed since November with this team? Blake, you want to go first?
Yeah, that's a tough question because I feel like there's so much. Like I think the low hanging fruit is like you get Asar Thompson back. The unfortunate part is you miss Jaden Ivey beginning at the start of the calendar year. So like on floor, the rotations, lineups, and everything is different. But I think overall the biggest thing for me is just they took that time they needed to gel with a new coaching staff, a ton of new veterans, and also your young players just like growing and improving themselves as well. Like Cade Cunningham having those all-star moments, getting named to his first all-star game. And me and Wes recorded our show last night, and we had a great question. I forget who it was from, but about the West Coast trip they had right before Jaden Ivey went down, where he hit that improbable 4-point play against Sacramento. And the person who asked the question just said, like, it feels like that really just sparked the Pistons forward. And I didn't think about it before, but I couldn't agree more with that. I feel like when you're on those longer road trips, it gives the team like more time to be together. And they were like winning games. They won 3 out of 4 on that road trip, and then come back into the start of the year and they hit these crazy hot stretches too. So I think it's basically just like all the time that they've had to gel, whether it's JB Bickerstaff with his team, the players getting used to their new coach, you have a new front office in order, and guys learning how to play off of each other, which they're doing well, and also like not rocking the ship at the trade deadline too, I think is huge. Just adding really by bringing in Dennis Schroeder with and not really giving up anything in return. So overall, I think it's just been pretty steady over the course of the season, which is crazy to say after like the disaster that last year was.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I think we all tend to skate over it because at this point it gets a little bit boring to just every single time we hop on a podcast talk about how amazing Cade Cunningham has been this year. But it bears repeating over and over again. He's been just that good. What's been different since November? I think it's really the leap that Cade really took. You've got I'm going to read off the month by month stats. So when Jaden Ivey's healthy in the month of December, Cade's putting up 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 11 assists. And then Ivey goes down in the month of January. It's almost 28 points, almost 6 rebounds, and about 8 assists, right? And he's been at about that level now since then. I mean, he took a leap once when Jaden Ivey was healthy and helping him out with all the ball handling duties. And you saw his assist numbers really leap up, right? And then when Ivey goes down, he even pops up more on the scoring sheet on every box score every night. So as well, I mean, you can't take too much from plus minus, but in the month of February, he's a plus 14. It's unreal, right? He launched himself into a stratosphere of NBA stardom that frankly we've not seen in Detroit in quite some time. And he's just now established at that point. It's not like he's going back. His month of March so far, I know it's just 3 games, but 27 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 assists. So this is just who he is, right? We've discovered that Cade Cunningham is at least probably all NBA second team. Maybe has an argument for even higher. He's one of the top 15 probably best players in the league right now. And yes, they improved defensively. Yes, the team's really gelling. But if you're looking for like one thing that drove this team to be close to 500 to, leaping into contention for the 6th, 5th, 4th seed, it's Cade. It's the leap that Cade took this year.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because like the way they started off the season, it started off 0-4, and I think a lot of people are like, "Oh crap, not again!" Right? Like it kind of goes back in your head, like that PTSD. They get a win over the Sixers, and I'm glad you brought up the West Coast trip because I felt like that was a pivotal trip for them to play some good basketball, beat some good teams. And I think that was one moment. I think the other moment that wasn't a win that really woke them up was the Utah game. Letting Utah go in there, score 50 points in a quarter, I felt like that really changed their mindset of coming out and starting off games strong because for the first maybe 2.5 months of the season, like they were really lethargic. Like game might have started at 7:30. They're not ready to play until like maybe 8:05. But as of late, I can't remember. Like I take notes during the game. It's like 30, 40 point first quarters, like from this team. Like they've completely like kind of switched the flip. And to your point, Wes, with Cade, like usually you see like progressions with the player. Maybe they'll average, maybe 3 or 4 more points a game. But the way he's just kind of taken a bigger responsibility and it has added more, like I didn't think the development would be this fast, like the growth being this fast. And like it's honestly insane just the steps in development he's taken from last year to this year. Like it's kind of scary. Like this kid is like not even in his prime because I feel like he could definitely take another step in development and get even better. And I think that's really scary if you think about it.
Yeah, 100% too. Like Cade is only in year 4 and basically all of his year 2 was gone for that shin surgery. So it's just incredible. He is like where he is right now. And I know like it's nice to see the Pistons getting some like shine from the national media, even though you don't know like how often those talking heads are like truly watching them. But a lot of them are putting Cade in their like top 10 players across the NBA. Like I think Bill Simmons had him in there. A segment from Nick Wright went viral too. So like I feel like the conversation surrounding Cade over this year just has grown little by little and started out like, is this the year he can be an all-star? And then it was like, okay, with the players that aren't going to be eligible, can Cade squeak into all NBA? And now it's like, is he going to be second team? So it just keeps like the ceiling keeps getting a little bit higher and higher for Cade in real time. And at this point, I don't know, like, I don't think there is really a ceiling for what he can become. And me and Wes were just talking about this too. Like, some of these star guards in the East, like Trae Young and Tyrese Halliburton, their playoff runs to the conference finals just came out of nowhere. And like, I don't know, or I should say, I don't think that's going to come for Cade and this young Pistons team this year. But I think a surprise run, like we've seen, like that Atlanta team did, like Indiana did last year, I think it's a whole heck of a lot sooner than I could have ever thought for this team.
Yeah, agreed. And just as like one final, I guess, point to add on to the Cade discussion, Mr. Ray brings up in the chat there, the mainstream media putting players like Scotty, Franz, and Jalen Green ahead of Cade in redrafts. Just think about for a second how not common it is for the best player in a draft class to actually be the number 1 pick. Like if you think about it, it's actually fairly rare. And Cade has firmly established that he is. So how fortunate were the Pistons with all the terrible draft luck that they had, that the one year they do move up, the one year they get it, first overall pick, it's actually the guy that turns out to be the best player in that draft class, and definitively too. There's really not an argument now. I don't even think for Mobley, who I love. So fantastically fortunate. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. And like after watching the Knicks, I want the Pistons to play the Knicks in the first round. 'Cause I want that chaos. Is like even like I've had Knicks fans reach out to me saying, I hope we don't see you in the playoffs because like the Pistons are the type of teams that Knicks would lose to in the first round because it's just like a New York Knicks thing to do. And like after watching them just implode against the Lakers last night, I was like, please, I need a Pistons Knicks first round matchup.
Well, especially after like Jalen Brunson got hurt. Like, hope that isn't too serious. But yeah, it's like their defense is questionable at best, like as it is, and then hopefully Brunson doesn't miss extended time. But like if he does, like where is their offense gonna come from? So yeah, like we've been having the conversation too about like preferred first round opponent, which I mean, it's a crazy conversation to have when you look back on where we recorded in November. And like, I think I'm with you. I think the Knicks are the best matchup for the Pistons to potentially win a series. And just because like the opponents that the Pistons can realistically face, like each one of them is going to have a stretch big. Like you're not really getting around that. You have to figure out how to deal with that. But we know like what Tom Thibodeau does. He's going to play his guys into the dirt, which everyone does in the playoffs. And yes, it would be the first round. So the Knicks would still be a little bit fresh. But I just think the Pistons have a deeper roster. We've seen how Cade Cunningham plays in Madison Square Garden. Like those lights will be bright and that atmosphere will be unreal. And I think Cade will be the best player on the court in that series. So I like that option for the Pistons too. If it was like Indiana, I think that's my preferred just for watching it as a fan. But in terms of like basketball and matchup, I would love that Knicks series too.
Just to play contrarian a little bit, I've been saying it over on our podcast. I'm going to keep saying it. Anthony, tell me know if I'm insane, but the Knicks actually, they petrify me a little bit. Not just because they're a really good offensive team so they could score, but specifically, I just have this recurring nightmare that the Knicks do what the Atlanta Hawks did to Cade Cunningham, which is trap him back court to get the ball out of his hands, except the Knicks can do it with OG Anunoby and McCall Bridges. And that level of just size, length, and athleticism with two really good wing defenders getting the ball out of Cade's hands. Yes, now you're dealing with a 4-on-3 with the Knicks' three bad defenders, right? But who's going to take advantage of that if it's not Dennis Schroeder? I'm really scared that all of a sudden you get into that series feeling really confident because Cade has had some incredible nights at MSG, and then all of a sudden he doesn't even get a chance. He can't have. They don't let him have the ball. So the Knicks, they scare me a little bit. Those wing defenders, they scare me.
Yeah, I mean, the farm that they had to give up for not only Mikal Bridges but OG and Cat, like they obviously have championship aspirations, and like who would blame them, right? That's a very good basketball team. The only thing I would say with that is I do agree with you. Playoff basketball is way different from regular season basketball, but Tom Thibodeau being their coach, I know all these guys are going to play high 30s, high 40s until like the end of the season, and they're probably not going to be 100% healthy. Like saw last year how banged up they were, and the Pacers made the Eastern Conference Finals. So knowing that Tom Thibodeau is their coach and just the way that he plays their starters high minutes, I think that would actually benefit the Pistons in terms of just a first round matchup because knock on wood, the Pistons outside of Jaden Ivey have been really healthy, something that we haven't really been able to say in years past. Like this has actually been a very healthy basketball team for the majority of the season.
Yeah, and like imagine if you're Jalen Brunson, and again, hopefully he's healthy and he's playing like 40 minutes in the playoffs, and second unit comes in and like he just all of a sudden has Ron Holland bothering him like that. I feel like that is just so would be so annoying if you were Jalen Brunson. And we've been talking a little bit about how the Pistons may shorten their rotation in the playoffs as well. And I think Holland, like you have to give him at least some role, like even if it's just 10 minutes a game and you're increasing like other players' minutes. I just think the energy that he brings would be a benefit to really any team in the playoffs. Like, will he make mistakes? Sure, but what he gives you, I think, is better than just trimming him out of the rotation as well. So, and that's, you can't say the same thing for a lot of rookies in this league right now who are going to get that playoff experience. So I think, like, top to bottom, the Pistons definitely have players who can score and who can just make the Knicks' life a little bit difficult on defense as well, which would definitely make for an interesting series.
And just the flip side of that Ron Holland thing too, right? From his perspective, is think about how incredible a development opportunity that is to get a guy as young as him, as raw as him, 10 minutes a night in an actual playoff series, not just a play, in a playoff series. One, not many rookies actually get that shot. So that's one. But two, for the Pistons, yeah, they're ahead of schedule, but they're also not a championship contender right now. So you're still building. You still have to have that future forward look. And in order to give a guy like Ron Holland, who could be an essential part of this core moving forward out on the wing, perhaps next to Asar Thompson in the future, to get him this experience early and have the luxury of doing that. And you compare that, I think Blake, you brought up previously, like Matas Puzelis, right? Who's just in a really tough situation there in Chicago as another G League Ignite guy. And you couldn't have put those two players in a different spot. So I think that the opportunity for Ron Holland is too great from both the Pistons' perspective and then his developmentally, where like, even if you trim it, I'm with you, Blake. You got to keep him in there. The upside is too great.
Yeah, I know fans have been like really hard on Simone Fontecchio. Like I get it. I just attribute it to the foot surgery, not having a full training camp to get ready, because at the end of the day, he's a good player. Like I think the game in Utah was probably one of his better games this season. Passing the basketball. I feel like some people really look at the box scores, but he made some pretty good passes this road trip so far. But like, I could see Ron taking some of his minutes just because the
solid
energy.
Defender too.
Yeah, solid defender.
I mean, he's just solid.
Yeah, like I can honestly see Ron taking a little bit of his minutes, and just the way Ron brings energy and the way this team likes to run now, I feel like Ron is always the first player on that second unit, pushing the pace and helping this team run in transition and get those transition opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. And when you like look at what the rotation is now, I think the clear, I guess, if someone was going to get pulled from the rotation in the playoffs, like, it does seem like it would be Fontecchio, but that doesn't mean he won't find minutes either if like there's foul trouble, whatever comes up. And I think he's a good option. Did I think he was going to have a much better season than he did? Yes, 100%. Has been very up and down. I think when he is coming in for like Asar Thompson, it's just a drastic downgrade in athleticism that is on the floor. And like, that's not Simone Fontecchio's fault. It's just Asar Thompson is that incredible of an athlete. Like, anyone in the NBA in that situation, you could say the same thing about. But yeah, it's nice, even if Fontecchio is out of the rotation, if the Pistons need to go to him, like, he can shoot the ball. Yes, he's been up and down. He's a solid defender, like you guys mentioned, and just a good option as well. But yeah, Ron Holland just seems kind of built for playoff basketball to me. So I'm excited to see him in that situation. I'd be shocked if his like role was trimmed out just getting into the postseason.
Yeah, I think overall we just like crushed the crap out of this topic, and that's why I love having you guys on, because you guys are just so insightful and a lot smarter than I am. I will give you guys that credit.
No, not at all.
No, don't say that, Anthony. We're all on the same level here.
I did want to kind of stick with the young guy, and I feel like for the first 2 months of the season, full transparency, I think a lot of people were on his ass. There was a lot of conversations about Jalen Duren, of effort. So I wanted to ask you guys this. Wes, I'll let you go first, like on this segment. Like, what do you think is like really clicked for Jalen Durham? Because you look like October, November, December, it like the effort defensively wasn't there, but like as of late, like this guy is like protecting the rim. He's kind of point Duran, if you will, in these DHO situations. Like, what do you think is like really clicked for him to like kind of like step up his game?
So I think that truthfully, the thing that has gone right or the things that have gone right for Jalen Duren are the things that he was already generally pretty good at, which is extremely common. Okay, so that's not a slight on him. I don't mean it in that way, but if you look at what he's always excelled at, it's offensive rebounds, it's lobs, and it's occasionally flashing a little bit of some passing chops, right, on a backdoor cutter. He's been especially good recently hitting Asar Thompson on backdoor cuts when he's been up in the high post. The point Duran thing in transition's been iffy, to put it lightly, right? There have been some good and some bad, probably in equal quantity. I do still think he has a turnover issue, but it's encouraging to see the assists go up. So what's interesting, at least for me, with Jalen Duren is he's gotten better as a rebounder. His energy, his effort is certainly improved, right? His level of focus is absolutely improved. And I think that leads to him being felt a little bit more when he's out there on the court. But when you talk about his defense, his deflections per game per NBA.com have not improved. His blocks and steals put together, his stocks over that month of February, where everyone is singing Jalen Duren's praises, they actually went down. Okay, so for a big 2 stocks per game, not fantastic, just kind of a base level expectation. In February, he was down to 1.5. In January was the first time this season he actually got over that 2, and it was just at 2.1. So I say all this to say he's still not an impactful defender. What has happened is he has been more energetic on that end. It's not led to more deflections. It's not led to more rim protection, but it's led to him getting in the way more, which is really good when you pair that with his offensive side of the game improving, right? That chemistry that he has with Cade Cunningham is real. His impact as an offensive rebounder and it's just like a low volume scorer is real. So what's clicked for him? It's just, I think at this point, experience, both in JB's system and then with Cade Cunningham. So they've got that chemistry. He knows what his job is, where he's supposed to be. But if we're still looking long-term, and I don't think we should lose sight of this, if he's going to be a big man that cannot shoot the basketball, then you have to trade off his ability to make passes, right? His playmaking ability with his kind of wanting defensive output with those stocks and deflections per game. And you pair that with the fact that he's not necessarily a fundamental defender either. We're starting to see a little bit more of that, but like I still have a lot of issues with his hands and drop coverage. I think the Nets game was the best he ever looked at that, and it's now reverted back to form in the 2 games since. Point is, long term, I still think that that's the major question with Jalen Duren. And as great as it is to see his efficiency and the things that he does well continue to improve, you still have to have that big time, long-term question with his defensive ability, especially given that it actually got worse in February, much closer to where he was last year rather than earlier this year.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the compete level on defense has definitely looked a lot better. Like the interesting thing, like Wes mentioned, is, and he's coming off a couple like solid games with a career high 6 blocks against Brooklyn, follows that up with 4 against Utah, and then the Clippers game had gotten foul trouble early, had a ton of trouble with Ivica Zubac. Like, I'm willing to throw that game out. Would love to see Duren like block shots at the level he did in those couple games a little bit more, because the 2 games before that Brooklyn game, I guess we can blow it out to the 4 games before that, he had just 1 block total over those 4 games. So I think it's just about continuing to just play with that effort, because Jalen Duren's admitted it himself. Like, he started the year like not going as hard, or whatever the wording was that he used. And I feel like you can just see a little bit of a difference, because like Wes said, what he brings on offense, how good he is as a pick and roll partner with Cade, a lob threat. can pass a little bit sometimes make poor decisions, but that player, that archetype is definitely important in the NBA. Like you saw the trade package that the Lakers were willing to give up for Mark Williams, and I'd be willing to bet they would have given up the same, if not a little bit more, for Jalen Duren, just because I think Williams is a little bit better of a defender than Duren, but Duren is like much more available than Mark Williams is, which is super important. So I think, and especially when you have a primary on-ball guy like Cade and like the Lakers do now with Luka, like they want to play with those big men who can roll to the rim. It's just like finding ways to continue impacting the game. And Anthony, you brought it up in the chat, same as Mr. Ray, like the time in when we've seen the discourse around Jalen Duren like turn more positive and just an upward trajectory sort of coincides with Asar getting ramped up fully back up to speed and just having the good stretch of basketball that he has as well. So I definitely think that plays a little bit into it as well.
Yeah, I think to Mr. Ray's point, I think that maybe kind of goes unnoticed with Asar just being out there, because I think if you're just watching basketball and you're not really focused on a player, Asar pops out on the screen because of how much ground he covers, not only just on the perimeter, but the weak side. And I think with Duren, just my assessment, he might not be getting the blocks or the steals, but he's bothering the shots where there's actually like a body in front of the rim. And for the first 2 months of the season, there was multiple possessions where he was just getting blown by, smaller guards, stronger forwards, or even like the perimeter defense. I think we could like attribute to like maybe, Karl Anthony Towns really early the next game where like they just destroyed us from the perimeter. Even Miles Turner to an extent, like he's doing a much better job of trying to close out in the perimeter. First couple of months of the season, he wasn't doing that. I think this the overall effort is better, and having a guy like Asar to cover a lot of that weak side help has probably made Duren's job in life a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I mean, I think that the difficult kind of assessment or difficult question to bring up with Duren recently and over the stretch with Asar kind of covering him, like you mentioned, like you have to realize that his defensive output was so strongly negative last year and early on this year that when he's now increased his energy level, right? His give a crap, right? It's just normal bad now. He's still not good. He's still not even neutral. You bring up that he's contesting shots. He's contesting shots, but he's late on rotations still very often. He still turns his hips way too often out on the perimeter and gets blown by quite a bit by guys that aren't that quick. Asar Thompson is working wonders to cover up some of this shortcoming. What we're seeing now is a defensive system that is basically geared to treat Asar Thompson kind of like an old school dominant defensive center, and that everything gets feeded to Asar if the Pistons can control it. I mean, they are switching to Asar. They are sending Asar as a roamer on the baseline. They are doing everything they can to get him nearer the ball, right? Which is usually the way you used to play defense with like Ben Wallace or someone like that. So I think that shift has really helped Jalen Duren, of course, but long-term, you still kind of have to have the question, if he's not going to be a shooter and he's just going to be a lob threat big, then he needs to be a much better defender. And the fact that he had 2 games against the Nets and against Utah where he actually flashed being that rim protector this year is a problem. That's still not great. That's 2 games out of, where are they at? Like 60 something?
Yeah, there's like 20 games left.
Yeah, 20 games left. So that's still not good. And if you're thinking long-term about extensions here, like I'm open to it, but it's tough when you're still looking at a guy who is producing like a really great backup big. And that is effectively what you're getting out of Jalen Duren right now. That's not a negative, right? But you've already got one of those. So how do you handle this center rotation going forward when you actually want to take a leap? And if your choice is between a guy like Asar Thompson, who, I mean, Omari said it a couple times, but he like teleports out there. He's almost a defense unto himself. if your choice is between that and lob threat big of Jalen Duren, like I think maybe you got to go looking for floor spacing.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been like very vocal about getting like more front court depth, especially at the forward or even the center position throughout the season. Um, Honestly, like the more I watch Duran, especially defensively, I do agree with you. I think there's multiple times where he does get beat. And just kind of having a star out there is just being like that Swiss Army knife of just covering so much ground, not just for Duran, but for Tim Hardaway Jr. At
And
times, like
Beasley too,
and,
with how
and
much he
Beasley.
pressures the ball and gets beat off that. I mean, sometimes he makes the steal, but it's a high risk play with Beasley out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly kind of crazy. It almost kind of reminds you of like I'm not comparing the two, but like kind of like how Tayshaun Prince used to just be like a Swiss Army knife, where he would just cover so much ground for everyone on the team. But like going the work team didn't need too much help, but like when they did get beat, he was there. What Asar's doing right now is like if you just watch a Pistons game, just watch how much ground that guy covers because it's honestly incredible, like how good of a defender he is already in the second season.
If he played the whole year, I think he's getting all defense consideration on one of those teams. I mean, he's been unreal.
Yeah. It's like I will say about, and I think there are similar defenders. I think it's a crime that Dyson Daniels isn't the front runner for defensive player of the year. And like, I could see Asar being on that trajectory eventually. And with Duran, I think another like interesting point is does the defensive concerns stand out more if you don't have Isaiah Stewart off the bench, who I think is, I mean, one of the best rim protectors across the league this season. And then Wes, you brought up like the extension conversation. If Duran has proved enough to you to give him like similar money to what you gave Isaiah Stewart and adjust it for the increased cap, like, okay, what does that mean for the future with Isaiah Stewart with the team? We saw what happened when he was in the starting lineup. Obviously, different scheme, asking him to do different things, but then you still need your, I guess, franchise center as well. So I think like right now, just the situation with having Asar on the floor next to Duran, having Stewart off the bench, I think it's working well. I think the more interesting thing is like how Langdon decides to go about it in the future. But yeah, that's his decision. I'm happy it's not one that I have to make.
Final little just like stats point to bring up a little bit of what you were talking about there, Blake. But with the difference between those two guys, Stewart and Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart is contesting about one additional shot per game. He's playing 6 less minutes. That's a big difference.
Yeah. It's honestly wild. I did want to kind of stick with the SAR because I feel like this coaching staff has completely done a 180 because when he was coming back on his minute restriction, it felt like he was just standing in the corner for a majority of the season. Something clicked. So I wanted to ask you guys this, is like having him have a bigger role open up the offense in your opinion. Blake, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has, and I think there still is like a long-term debate because I mean, I'm not very optimistic that Asar will ever figure out the three-point shot. I think it can improve from what it is now, but I don't think that would be very difficult, honestly. But I think he has found ways to generate offense or just finish plays aside from having to have that three-point shot in the arsenal. And I still think it's a valid long-term concern that you have Asar and Jalen Duren playing next to each other, who neither of them stretch the floor at all. I mean, it helps when you have Malik Beasley playing next to them at times, like Tim Hardaway Jr. when he's making shots, and even when Tobias has looked better too, to really help Cade out. But yeah, I think as Asar got more and more comfortable, it definitely like he figured things out a little bit more, and it seemed like a heck of a lot quicker than maybe I thought. he was going to, just because I know that blood clot injuries have happened across the league, but I feel like I haven't paid attention to one or watch nearly as many like games of a player coming back from one of those. So I didn't really know what to expect there. But I think as he's gotten more and more minutes, gotten a little bit more on ball reps, even though there's still a lot of like work to go there. I think that's helped him out as well, and just what he's able to do on defense and impact plays, get into passing lanes, get out into transition. Like I think that's where he's at his best, and he's getting more of those opportunities now as he gets farther along into this season.
To me, I think he's like the prototypical modern four right now. He's the type of essentially power forward, but let's just call it a four because it's really a combo forward right now. The power forward position is kind of dead, but the role that he can play and that he has been playing since really February, the entire month of February, and then now continuing on, has been, how do I put this? Think about the level of impact that Asar Thompson will allow this team to unlock if you pair him with a guy like Miles Turner, for example. Okay, because Asar Thompson is such a menace out on the perimeter. Since since the All-Star break, he is 6th in the NBA in deflections per game. He's averaging like 13 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, basically since February, right? I mean, what has happened here is a guy who potentially could be winning or competing for Defensive Player of the Year for the foreseeable future. He rebounds the ball. He's a menace in transition, and that's really where you've seen more of the ball handling stuff come up, right? Him and just doing these grab and goes where he's unstoppable because he's faster, can jump higher, and is just stronger than almost everybody. Like when you pair a guy like that with an actual defensive anchor who can block some shots, and you don't even need a lot offensively from the guy. If he could just shoot it a little bit too offensively, right? It lets Asar Thompson be the entire defensive system, and he would excel in that. I think that it's hard to put into words the impact that he has had defensively and what that could mean for a team like the Pistons, who's trying to develop this kind of dual centric offensive system around a guy like Cade Cunningham and eventually Jaden Ivey when he comes back healthy. To have a player like Asar who can be such a menace in transition, who is a growing and improving cutter without the ball in his hands, can handle a little bit of DHOs every now and then defensively just obliterate the other team's best perimeter player while also still impacting guys and help and being able to rotate. That guy is so stinking valuable to the offensive and defensive systems that JB wants to run. And so I don't think you could be any more excited by Asar Thompson on this team. I don't think it could have worked out any better than it has really since the All-Star break.
Yeah, I feel like him just bringing the ball up the court in certain possessions, letting Cade play off ball a little bit, has this like really
Pressure
opened up.
release, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like, and you mentioned like what happens when the Knicks like double team like Cade in the half court. Like, I think giving Asar reps during the season maybe is gearing him up for the playoffs just in case, because you can have multiple guys bring the ball up the court. You don't always have to rely on Cade to bring the ball up the court, but I think if we're being honest, you probably want the ball in his hands. But I think just him bringing the ball up the court, initiating the offense a little bit, and like you mentioned, like he's faster, quicker, stronger, can jump over basically anyone. It seems like it's kind of wild to kind of like think that he was just kind of playing that Stanley Johnson role, standing in the corner, just like, shoot threes. But I think this coaching staff is, watch film, unlock him a little bit. And I think a big reason why they've been running so much is because you're putting the ball in his hands. And Asar is one of those guys on this team that loves to run in transition and play that fast-paced style.
I do think just quickly that the standing in the corner thing, the Stanley Johnson bit, with how this season has progressed, I kind of think it was Asar Thompson's fault. He's improved so much as a cutter. Like Jalen Duren has gotten multiple assists since the month of February. Just to have Asar Thompson even cutting from the wing at this point. The increase in his ball handling hasn't really been initiating. He'll occasionally bring the ball up and he'll make the first pass, and then we'll get into the offense. They're not really asking him to handle a bunch of pick and rolls or handle a bunch of DHOs. It's just kind of, hey, take the ball in transition, and then if Cade's getting pressured in the backcourt, like you said, bring it up, make the first pass, and let's get the offense going. So everything that he's been doing offensively, the improvement that he's made. So you look in the month of January, 8 points per game and shooting about 50% from the floor. And then it jumps up since then. It's been about 13 and shooting close to 63% of the floor. Everything he's been doing has been putting himself in a position to play off of Cade, Schroeder, and Jalen Duren as a cutter, as a kind of dunker spot guy, pick and roll, screen setter even, right? So it's just that he's getting himself more involved, I think, instead of simply standing in the corner. Because we're seeing this a little bit with Ron Holland too. Now, early on, it felt like he was less involved in the offense, and now it feels like he's more involved in the offense in his minutes. It's not necessarily that his role has changed. He's just taking better advantage of it. And I think we could say the same of Asar Thompson.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with, like, Mr. Ray in the chat mentioned, it's almost like having a superstar role player when Asar is fully unlocked. Like, I was just gonna say, like, Asar is not eligible for his extension until after next season, so the Pistons have some time. But the way it's going right now, like, and the archetype that Asar is, like, those players get paid across the league, or they're a player that a team, probably the New York Knicks, would trade like their next 5 years of draft capital to acquire. So, like, that's a great asset for the Pistons to have. And, like, I mean, if you're looping the young players aside from Cade, because Cade already has an extension, who you'd be most comfortable giving an extension to, like, right now, if everyone was eligible, I think Ron Holland's on the same path, but, like, my answer right now would definitely be Asar Thompson.
Man, just imagine how fun it could be to have Ron Holland capitalize on some of the offensive flashes that we've seen out of him, and then have him starting next to Asar Thompson in the future. Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
That would be something special. Both ends of the floor.
Having those two guys as your 2-3 would just be menaces defensively. Like, I would not want to see that team in the
3-4,
future.
shift them up and get another ball handler too, right? You could get it could get nasty. It could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, even a 3-4 combo, because I know some people are like, just let Asar play power forward. I mean, he can block shots, he's switchable. Yeah, I know, you said it too. It's just, I've had multiple people, like, when we do these post game podcasts, mention that. They're like, just unlock him, let him be that Rodman. I was just like, you're probably right.
He is playing power forward. I mean, functionally, Tobias Harris is doing a lot more of the 3 stuff than Asar Thompson is. So I think we're seeing it. They just don't list it that way, which is always funny.
Yeah, it honestly is. This next segment I think is funny, and you guys probably do too. So we have most improved odds, right? And I saw this week that Cade, he's kind of been the odds-on favorite to be the most improved player. I'm just gonna read this list for audio listeners, because anytime I don't read a list, I hear about it. I don't know about you guys. Like, I get an audio listeners, like, I had to actually watch your podcast full to see the most improved player odds list. So Cade Cunningham's the odds-on favorite is at -600, following by Tyler Hero at second place +700, Kristen Braun at a +1500, Dyson Daniels +4000, with Evan Mobley at a +4000, Amen Thompson +10,000, Jalen Williams +10,000, and DeAndre Hunter at a +15,000. But Wes, I'll let you take this one first. Do you think that the most improved player of the year award is broken? Because I look at a guy in Cade Cunningham, I don't really think he should be a most improved candidate. Not saying that he hasn't improved this year, but I just kind of feel like the award's broken.
Yeah, it's tough, right? So on the one hand, Cade has improved quite a bit, right? If we just even look year to year, last year it was about 23 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 7.5 assists. Now it's almost 26. 6 rebounds and 9.5 assists. Like, he definitely took a leap. We've been talking about that on the show already, the improvement that he's made to really thrust himself into that tip top echelon of superstars in the NBA already. So I don't I'm with you. I don't want to disregard that. So
Yeah.
at the same time, though, like Tyler Hero's on this list. He probably shouldn't be on this list. Guys like Dyson Daniels, that's a great one. Amen Thompson was hurt so much last year, but DeAndre Hunter would be a fantastic name here. I do agree with you that the spirit of this award is more for the guys that were maybe just a role player and all of a sudden takes a leap and figures out how to be a fantastic starter and doubles their output, right? Similar, actually, DeAndre Hunter didn't end up starting, but going from where he was last year to now, 18 points per game, shooting over 40% from three and being healthy all the time. Fantastic. That's a guy that I think should win it. One more thing, though, if I could just say this is always something that bugs me a little bit. All of these odds, all that's telling us is that a lot of people are betting that Cade's going to win the award. And then now the casinos are shifting their lines so that they could hedge and hopefully win a lot of money off of people when they were wrong. Like, there's no insider info here.
Yeah.
This is just telling us that a lot of people think that Cade Cunningham is going to win. Whether the NBA does it or not, I don't know. But this is a fan-driven thing. So clearly a lot of people who are fans of the NBA and who have money and are confident enough to put money down on the most improved player odds, they think that this is how the award should go. We'll see if the NBA agrees. But that's all we're learning here. It's still interesting.
Yeah, I kind of think that I don't agree with how that the most improved player award has turned into this, but I think it's become like you're not good enough where we have a specific individual award for you. So here you go. And
this is all Steph Curry's fault, just like everything else.
Yeah, and maybe I think the trajectory that Cade is on right now, I would not be shocked if he won an MVP one day. And I think this award is a little bit turning into younger player who is having that breakout season award. The other one you can go to is Ja Morant won this award a couple years ago, and he was the number 2 pick overall. But yeah, I agree with what Wes said. I will say, and this player is probably, I don't think, going to be eligible for postseason awards, just because he won't have the games injury. But when I first saw this list, I was like, why is Norm Powell not on here?
Right.
Yeah, he's averaging almost 10 more points a game. The Clippers are a good team after all the turnaround that they had, Kawhi missing time and everything. So I think an archetype like that is deserving. It's probably not going to be Norm Powell just because I don't think he'll be eligible and he's hurt right now. But that said, if Cade wins it, I would be very happy for him because I feel like these individual awards are so hard to come by. They're hard to win, and he'll get his honors elsewhere too with all NBA and everything. But yeah, I think it would be a great honor for him, even though I do think the award would be more fitting for someone like DeAndre Hunter, who is more based on these odds, a long shot to win it.
Yeah, I feel like when I'm looking at these awards, I look at Ja Morant from a few years ago that won it, and I was like, I think the narrative that's been drawn out by a lot of people are why are we giving most improved to top 1 selections, first overall pick, second overall pick, when this award, when I was a kid, this was a bench player award, in my opinion. Maybe you average 5 points and you get up to 12 points. That's most improved. I think the award has kind of shifted focus across the, national media, which I get. Stuff happens, stuff changes, but I'm not discrediting Cade. I think he has improved quite a bit. I'm with you, Blake. I think if Norm Powell doesn't, get injured and he's still playing the way that he was playing, the award should have been his, in my opinion. Just the way, going from 13 points to 23 points.
Yeah.
in a season, having a bigger role, like that guy should be most improved in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm with you. I think that that's how the award ideally would go, or like the bench player that like doubled their output, right? And it's not like Cade doesn't have an argument. So the one thing though that I will say that I think I disagree a little bit about this conversation so far with you is just that I don't love kind of scaling guys based on expectations. So yeah, okay, Cade was a number one pick. That comes with really high expectations. How many number one overall picks don't meet those? Right? How many number two overall picks don't become John Moran? There's one thing to say that, well, he was a high pick. Everyone thought that he had this type of output, but not everybody reaches that. So I think it's a little too much to the discredit of the player to just say, look, Cade, you were number one overall pick. We all thought you'd get here, so it's not impressive that you did. He did go from a guy that someone in the comments mentioned it, but Chuck Brewer, yeah, he was like 63rd in the top 100 or something like that when the season started, and now we're talking about him as potentially a top 10 player over the course of this season. Okay, that leap is not nothing. It's impressive. It's really valuable. I think the reason I'm more hesitant to say like that Cade really has a strong argument for it is just that awards are really stats based, right? And it's not like his stats doubled. This is more like the Steph Curry thing when he won it, right? Steph went from like 25 points per game to maybe 30. And then Cade went from 23 to 26 here. And yeah, he improved his assists too. Like his statistical output hasn't gone through the roof. His impact on the court has, of course, right? But his statistical output hasn't. So that's why I mean, Dyson Daniels is another great one for this, going from kind of a throw-in trade piece to now potentially defensive player of the year. That's a huge one. Yeah, I mean, Christian Braun's a good name too. Yeah, I like the spirit of it that you had talked about. I just don't love the expectations piece.
Yeah, it's not so much like my take on it. I just see like national heads talking about like the reason why they feel like the award's broken. And Alex B has like a really good comment saying, I just feel like the team from a worst to the playoffs is the main reason for him being the number one option. And I agree with
That's a
that.
great point.
Yeah, the Monty Williams experience, I think, did all damage on us.
Yeah, and if we're talking awards, like JB should certainly be right there for Coach of the Year. Like I think he is now. And like the problem with these awards, and especially particular ones like Most Improved Player, and even like what's the new one they have, like Clutch Player of the Year, and even Coach of the Year to a degree, like they're arbitrary. There's so many different situations, contexts are different. Like I think it's kind of ironic that the two leaders for Coach of the Year are JB and Kenny Atkinson, who took over a job where JB just got fired from a year ago. So it just speaks to like the situation being everything. And the Cavs are at the top of the East, and the Pistons are making a name for themselves as an up and coming contender who's going to make the playoffs this year. So leading two totally different situations. And I think Cade deserves credit for that. Do I love the, I guess like context of the award, or just like most improved? Should it go to someone else? Maybe. But I think if there's not anyone else there, then yeah, Cade's a more than worthy candidate because of what you guys brought up.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
is oh, sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
no, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say that this is something that Laz Jackson, shout out Laz, brought up on our show a few weeks ago. Of just like when it seems like the league is really pushing Cade Cunningham media wise, that it's not only is it obviously a good thing, but it's because it's really good for the league if a former number one overall pick becomes a superstar on a franchise, a foundational franchise like the Pistons, and kind of drags them out of the mediocrity, right? So it's really good for the league if Cade gets some awards here. And if there's not like an argument for Clutch Player of the Year or something like that, I could definitely see, if you put on the tinfoil hat a little bit here, I could definitely see, okay, let's get him all NBA second team, and then also most improved player. And then we're going to follow that playoff series really closely on the media side of things from the league. Like I could see those softer things just from a health of the NBA kind of playing a part here too, which, you wonder if maybe the bettors kind of pick up on that vibe that the league is really pushing this guy. And maybe that's why they're putting their money down.
They need a face of the league. LeBron doesn't want it anymore. I'm
Luka.
kidding.
Luka Garza.
Yeah.
Shout out to Luka Garza and his dad. His dad still is like supports the Pistons, and I love that.
Oh yeah, good guy.
Shout out to Frank Garza, man. He's a real one. I saw this, I believe, a couple of days ago, and I don't agree with the order, but I think we'll probably agree on this list. So Kendrick Perkins had his top 5 point guards in the NBA list. Obviously, SGA 1, Jalen Brunson 2, Steph Curry 3, Luka Doncic 4, Cade 5. So what do you guys think of, Cade Cunningham being a talking point as a top 5 point guard in the NBA right now?
I mean, I think it's well deserved personally. Like, I honestly haven't, like, I guess just thinking of the Pistons making this leap into being a playoff team, I've thought more about Cade personally on like where he stacks up against some of these other star guards in the East. And like, I mean, I could make an argument that Cade's been even better than Jalen Brunson and definitely more impactful on both ends of the floor. And you look at guys like Trae Young. Like Trae Young is one of 2 players who is averaging more assists per game than Cade this year. The other one's Nikola Jokic, but Trae doesn't play the defense that Cade does, and Cade just has this like pace about him similar. I know he gets the Luka comparison a lot, and I think Luka's like D-cell game is on a different level, but Cade has just been able to take over games, and that even in the loss to the Clippers where James Harden was going crazy, like Cade had 37 and 10 and almost generated as many points as James Harden did. And the Pistons haven't really had a player like that who, if someone's going off for 50 points, like we've seen KD do at LCA, like Anthony Davis, you just can't keep up. And I mean, some of these like the names on this list, like I agree with it for the most part. And like Shea is 100% deserving of number 1 here just because he's on another planet this season. And I don't think Cade is, I guess, at the level maybe that like Luka and Steph were, but I'd argue that Cade has definitely had a better season than Jalen Brunson so far.
I would too. I mean, I think if I'm going to quibble with this like 1 through 5 order here, right? Big Perk has the order at SGA, Brunson, Curry, Luka, and then Cade. Like I agree with the top 5. While you were talking, I was trying to figure like who's missing from this.
Kyrie,
right? It's Trae Young, Kyrie. Probably maybe LaMelo Ball. Maybe.
Yeah, that's the other one I was thinking about.
Darius Garland, Tyrese Halliburton. Those are the only names I could really come up with. I don't think I'd put any of those guys in there over functionally Jalen Brunson. Like if this is my list, it's SGA, Luka, Curry, Cade, Brunson, and then maybe Halliburton, there. But I think it is really cool just to have this being put in perspective, where you could draw a really solid line after Steph Curry there as kind of a, going back to the draft conversation, you want to do a tier break, right? You do a tier break here after 3. So you'd have SGA, Luka, Steph, and then the next best point guard in the NBA, I think it's Cade.
Yeah.
I think it's Cade.
Which means we think he's the best point guard in the East.
Yes. I don't think there's an argument. It's the size.
Mm-hmm.
It's the size. I don't think there's an argument.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah, I know. Like when this list came out, like the order I don't agree with, but the players in this list I agree with. Like, I think Luka at 4, even though he's had injuries, like what the Lakers are doing right now was incredible. I still can't believe he's a Laker.
Yeah.
It still does not feel real. I don't get it. But I mean, like, yeah,
They
you could
just
have like,
somehow added Larry Bird part
y-
2. Here we go.
yeah, I mean, people are making jokes that they're gonna trade, Kyrie Irving for a bag of chips next. Like, it's just like it's crazy.
No, they love him too much. But
Oh
who
man,
knows?
yeah, but
Kyrie's
like,
gonna strong arm him now too. Like
He
that
has
contract's
to.
gonna be
He
insane.
has all the leverage.
yeah, I mean, it's funny. You just see like these viral pictures of Dirk Nowitzki like high out of his mind, saying like Nico probably would have traded him too. It's just like, man.
I'd believe after the Luka trade, like anything is on the table.
Honestly, man. Like, and then you get into the conspiracy theories where they want to move to Vegas because of the owner. It's like
Yeah.
that's where she made her fortune. It's just like, I'll just trade the best player. I don't care.
Yeah, they don't care about basketball, actually. What a mess, man. Like,
Let's hang on though. Let's not get distracted by the Mavericks here. Can we just ask the question, how on earth did the Lakers keep doing this?
yeah.
How does every like potentially number 1 player in the league somehow, some way end up in LA? Why? Why?
Because they're the Lakers. Like, I have no better explanation than that.
But it's not always free agents, Blake.
I know.
People keep trading them to them. Like I don't get it.
It's
I
like
don't
Shaq.
get it.
It's like Shaq when I
Shaq.
was a kid. I mean, like,
Mhm.
if you think about it, like, I can't name you a draft pick that the Lakers drafted and developed, and he's like their star. Like outside of
Kobe.
maybe like Magic Johnson and Kobe, like outside of that, it's just like, yeah, like they've got like a lot of star players. And like the only conspiracy
This is
theory,
Lonzo Ball erasure, and I will not stand for it.
shout out to Lonzo. um, the one thing that I had a subscriber actually email me, and like he was like tinfoil galaxy brain. He's like, think about it. You got the Celtics and Jason Tatum. They want Lakers Celtics NBA Finals to bring back that old rivalry from the 80s. They want those two ratings go up as high as possible. But like watch it be like Cavs Lakers in the finals and the Cavs beat LeBron. Like that would just be all-time storyline telling. Like that would be hilarious.
You know what I actually would love though? Like let's fully repeat history then. Let's get about
Yeah.
5-6 years here of Lakers Celtics, and all of a sudden Kate comes in and ruins the show with a couple of back-to-backs.
Yeah. Then hopefully the Bulls don't get whoever
Oh.
the next person
Unless
is.
Matas is Jordan, I don't think that's happening.
They're so far off from that. But yeah, my mind went the same way with all like the Lakers Celtics trends here.
Yeah, it's honestly crazy. It like it almost like that feels like a bad jersey swap seeing Luka in a Lakers jersey. But hey, man,
It's still weird, but it's so fun to watch. Like I was up way too late last night watching the end of the Lakers Knicks game just because it's so and like the Lakers fan, like the atmosphere is just incredible off this like Luka trade. And I mean the trade-off is vibes couldn't be any worse than they are in Dallas, but like this is definitely like invigorated the Lakers, which is crazy.
And can we now finally put to bed the whole like, oh, there's only one ball? Like Luka and LeBron are thriving together right now. Let's just let that die.
Unreal.
Let that die.
Yeah, honestly, like even as like a Piston fan, like I'm like tuning into these Lakers games just because it's just like the way that they're playing basketball right now. It's honestly crazy, and like that'd be so funny if like the Pistons spoil the Lakers championship and history repeats itself like that, and like they kind of build the dynasty
for the
that
third
way.
time. That would be amazing.
Like honestly. We have a top 10 ranking. I don't know if you guys saw this. So ESPN actually had the Pistons, believe it or not, in their power rankings in the top 10. When I was reading this, I was like, oh man, where are the Pacers? They were 11th, which kind of makes it funny if you're a Piston fan. But what do you guys kind of think of, the Pistons being in a ESPN top 10 power ranking?
I mean, I agree with it just because I think this stretch of Pistons basketball, like, you have to put them up there. Like, are they a top 10 team in the league just when you go out to the full season? Probably not. Will they end that way in the standings? Also, probably not. But just being a power ranking and like considering that the Pistons have been one of, if not the hottest team in the NBA, like they deserve to be up here. And yeah, like Cleveland at the top makes all the sense in the world. Like they're rattling off a bunch of games in a row. Oklahoma City too. But like the Pistons have been playing better than a lot of these teams. And like we saw what they did to the Celtics at home. And that was a huge test. And they came out and answered it and beat them decisively, which I think answered a lot of questions for a lot of people watching. And honestly, just like zooming out, I think the Pistons are again one of, if not the best stories in the NBA this season. Like obviously you look at the Laker trade, I don't think we'll see another deal like that for like it's just the craziest trade ever. But like when you look at this Pistons team who had the worst record in the NBA last year, worst finish in franchise history, now they're in position to be in the playoffs, not even in the play, and just go right into that top 6 on pace to like triple their win total from last year. And I know they just won 14 games. So when you win that little games, it makes it easier to make a bigger step, but I don't think anyone saw this coming. So they should be in this top 10. Could that change if these like streaks and winning, like I think it's 12 out of their last 16 games, like don't keep up? Sure, but right now, like they definitely deserve to be in this.
Yeah, I mean that was the point I was gonna make. Just look at the post All-Star break stats for the team. All right, they are 4th in points per game. They're 12th in points allowed per game. So that net rating's fantastic. They're actually 1st in the league in blocks as a team. They're up there. Oh no, actually they are. They're tied for number 1 in steals with the Timberwolves. So there's your Asar Thompson effect. They're a top 20 rebounding team over the span. Like that, and then of course you got Cade Cunningham leading the charge with the numbers he's been putting up. Like I know it's wild to say, but this has been a top 10 team by most metrics since the All-Star break. So yeah, I mean they deserve to be there in that top 10 power ranking. They're playing like a top 10 team right now. Now the challenge is to hold on, right? To keep up playing this way all the rest of the year when you've got a pretty tough schedule down the stretch with some mean series. Like you go Knicks, Bucks to end the year. That's tough. I think they got OKC in there and Cavs mixed in. Like it's going to be a tough stretch down the rest of the way. But if they can keep this up, I mean, they're playing like a top 10 team. So of course they're in the top 10. You know, it's just weird to say.
I know someone, I don't know if it's true because I didn't like look it up. They're like, but the last time Pistons were like a top 10 in the power ranking was like over 15 years ago, which I'd be like, maybe that checks out. I haven't been able to actually like go on Basketball Reference or look at old archive articles and see like when the last time the Pistons were in an ESPN top 10 power ranking. But I mean, I think everything you said, Wes, like just the way that they've been playing since All-Star break, like it feels so weird because last year feels like such a blur, and you go from like worst to like a 6th seed competing, like beating like a lot of the teams on this list. Like you beat Boston, you swept the Lakers, you beat the Knicks twice, you beat Houston. Like a lot of these teams are going to be in like to make the playoffs and like probably get out of the first round or possibly try to push for a conference final. So the fact that you're in there with a lot of these heavy hitters, this kind of tells you like how well the Pistons have been playing basketball this season.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, like you guys said, I think the challenge is to keep it up through this last, I think it's 19 games now. And yeah, like Chuck Brewer just mentioned in the chat, we do have to play the Thunder twice. The Pistons haven't played them yet this year. They end with back-to-back against the Bucks. So it's not an easy schedule by any means, but I think it's good tests going in to the postseason. And you have to hope like I think they're gonna win 40 games this year, which I could not have imagined saying coming into the season or even at the start of it. And again, they're just like on pace to do better than that. Like, have triple the amount of wins that they had last year. Like, that doesn't happen too often. And the one thing I love about this team going into the playoffs is like they're playing with house money. They have nothing to lose. And going back to the matchup conversation, like I would not want to play a team like that in the playoffs, especially when you're a New York Knicks who sent out a ton of assets to form the roster you have right now. And these are like years that these teams can't throw away. Like it's another year of Giannis and Dame for the Bucks, and the Pistons are just starting their upward climb. So I definitely would not want to see them, and you just have to hope that they can keep playing the way they are right now through the course of the year.
And what's so fascinating and so exciting is like, look at what they've been doing over the season on the whole, right? This is a top 15 team in terms of offense and defense on the whole year, right? And obviously they've now exceeded that on both ends of the ball in this stretch here since the All-Star break, and actually really since the start of the new year. So this is a team that was playing somewhere around league average output, somewhere around that 15 range on both sides of the basketball. And then now you're up into the top 10, right? I'm with Blake. No one wants to see Detroit. No one wants to see Detroit in the playoffs. They're getting hot at the right time. It's unbelievable.
Especially with that new CBA and like all these general managers not wanting to pay, like going into the tax. Like you look at the Pistons cap space or just their cap sheet, like outside of like Cade and Isaiah Stewart and Tobias, like no one's like really like, I guess like long term. And even Tobias and like Tech and those guys are only on 2-year deals. So I mean, like the way that this front office is kind of like set up this team and this to have like success long term, I think is pretty cool as a Piston fan to see, because I think a lot of us last year were having the conversations like, do these pieces fit? Can they play together? And now they're playing meaningful basketball. So it's a complete 180 from last season.
Yeah, 100%. I just still can't believe we're here, and it makes this this stretch of the season where we have typically been turning our eyes toward the draft a lot more fun and a lot more to talk about. Obviously,
I don't even think I've spun Tankathon this year.
Why would you? The Pistons won't even have a pick.
I just feel bad for Blake and our guy Bryce Simon. You know that these are, to some extent, draft experts, and on both of these podcasts, the Pistons Pulse and now the Pindown, like we ain't talking about the draft. We're not.
I'm already on to 2026. Like the Nike.
Wow, I love
the
it.
Nike Hoop Summit roster came out today, and I was like, okay, like some of these guys, one of them might be a Piston, and then the Pistons will have full control of their draft capital. So that's a problem for way down the road. Because how could you not be excited about where they are right now?
Yeah, it's honestly crazy. I mean, I see Timberwolves fans saying thanks for the pick. I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because we want that thing to convey.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw like Cade's comments about the officiating after the Clippers game. I kind of wanted to get your guys' overall thoughts on it. Like he's kind of been upset with the officials, obviously, for full transparency for people that didn't stay up and watch the Clippers game. James Harden had 20 free throws. The Pistons collectively as a team had 19 free throws. So what's like your overall take with like Cade being frustrated with NBA refs?
Yeah, I mean, I think he has a point, but I think the good thing about it is there's only so many of these players in the league, like James Harden, SGA, Brunson. Like you're not going to play them night in and night out. And that's what they do. I feel like Cade's game, even though he's getting to the line like a decent amount for a normal player, he's doing what he can to get to the line more. It's frustrating when one player shoots 20 free throws, but I think on top of Harden, like the Clippers only shot 26 free throws as a team. So the discrepancy wasn't totally like that insane, in my opinion. What I will say I liked about Cade's comments, and JB Bickerstaff had a similar sentiment, is like this game against the Clippers was a tough game on the road against a tough team. James Harden goes off for 50 points. Like the Pistons could have easily, and like what they probably would have done last year is just not been super, just like, okay, we didn't expect to win this one, on to the next game. But like, I got the energy from both Cade and JB that they were pissed that they didn't come away with this one. There were a few questionable calls down the stretch that didn't go the Pistons' way, and like that's not okay with them now. Like they expect to win every game, night in and night out, no matter who they play. And I mean, I think that's unbelievable, a heck of a turnaround, and credit to JB for that mindset, and like Cade for also being the locker room leader, which he clearly is. I mean, I think getting to the line more is like something that'll probably continue to be a talking point, but I think he's done a better job at it overall this year. And I just don't think his game is going to be like the Hardens or the SGAs that are getting to the line like an insane amount of times per game.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we'd actually talked about this a little bit on the show on the Pindown, but like, if it has to go this way, right, where you have one player that gets a ridiculous amount of free throws, this is kind of how you would want it to go. Like the actual total numbers for free throws was not all that lopsided. Pistons had 19, in which the Clippers were 26, right? Only two other guys on the Clippers roster shot free throws. Yeah, part of that is, of course, just opportunity, right? James Harden was taking a lot of shots, taking a lot of volume. I get that. But the Pistons were able to spread out the free throws a little bit more broadly. I'll say that Cade has a bit of an argument. I mean, I just pulled up the shot chart for both Harden and Cade. They were at the rim very similar amount of times, but they both pulled up from mid-range from that elbow a similar amount of times. So it's not like their shot diet was all that different in that game, which I didn't think it was, as I was watching through it. But so maybe you could make an argument that Cade's not getting quite the same whistle that Harden is. At the same time, James Harden, Trae Young, drawing fouls is a skill. They're unbelievably good at it. It's not fun as it is to watch. They are unbelievably good at that skill. So for Cade's perspective, getting 6 free throws in a game for him is actually really good historically for his output. So I thought that he was ref fairly fair. The teams were fairly even back and forth. And, this is one of those just kind of, I guess, vibes sort of things, right? Where it just feels so much worse when it's one guy on the other side that's killing you, when it's one guy that's taking all the free throws, even though the actual game isn't all that lopsided.
Yeah, I mean, Pistons Twitter calls him an ethical hooper because he's not out there like a Jalen Brunson or a Trae Young or even a James Harden.
SGA.
Yeah, I swear, if Cade had SGA's whistle, he'd probably average 30 points a game easily. Like, you can't even
he's not that far off.
You can't even breathe on SGA without being a foul. Like, it's honestly insane, like, the whistle that he gets. Like, I hope as a fan, like, Cade can get that whistle one day, because if he does, watch out.
Free throw merchant.
Yeah, but I just wanted to touch on it because I know, some fans, like, they had submitted some questions in last night after I told them that you guys were being on, and they were actually like pretty excited. They had one more segment, and this name is really polarizing, and you guys are probably going to roll your eyes at it, but it's Devin Booker. And Pistons fans want to know, obviously, being from Grand Rapids, being from Michigan, he's always wearing Detroit sports gear. So I'll ask you guys this question. Do the Pistons have any chance of getting a Devin Booker in a Pistons uniform?
I'll go first, Blake, because I've got a bit of a contrarian answer here. I don't think the Pistons should even want a chance to get Devin Booker in a Pistons uniform. He's coming up on his 30th birthday, and what we've seen out of Bradley Beal, who at his peak is an extremely similar player in terms of play style to what Devin Booker has shown us, I am not excited about Devin Booker on a massive contract getting into his mid and late 30s. I would pass. I think that they'll have other opportunities to get other stars, and best case scenario with a guy like Booker is, yes, he's still a good shooter. Yes, he's still a good scorer, but everything else starts to fall by the wayside. And he's getting paid, $60 million or something insane on his next contract extension. No Devin Booker for me. I'm good. I think you let this thing continue to play out, continue to strike maybe while the iron's hot on turning in some of the Pistons' younger players for a younger star, whoever that may be. I don't know, but someone much closer to Cade's age range in that 25 to maybe 26, 27 area, instead of Book, who's approaching an age range that, with his play style, just concerns me a lot. I don't even want him. I love the Detroit ties, the Michigan ties. Like, I get all that. I don't want them. Not at that price, I should say.
Yeah,
for free, of course.
I will say I love Devin Booker. My dad lives in Arizona, so I sort of followed those teams like after Detroit, and like I loved watching the Suns run in the bubble. They get CP3, they make that run to the finals, and the KD experiment hasn't go good. And I'll be the first to say I was thrilled when the Pistons hired Monty Williams. Like, I knew a lot of people were, just after like watching what he did with that team in the bubble, and then the turnaround and making the run for the final. Like, I bought into the vision, and I'm with Wes. Like, I'm not giving up the farm to bring in Devin Booker. I think if you can get him for a semi lower price, like, the thing is, like, Booker has been on the record saying he wants to play for the Suns for his full career, but just with everything going down there, it seems like that might change a little bit, and maybe the organization tries to trade him. I feel like with what we've seen Matt Ishbia do since he bought that team, it doesn't seem like he's really interested in sending out stars, but he's probably going to have to do that at some point. And does he strip it down, take what he can get for Devin Booker, who's probably his best asset right now? I think that might be the case, but I don't know if the Pistons are the best suitor for it, especially just because of the price they'd probably have to pay. I think a move, because I think the Pistons are positioning themselves to make a trade at some point, like probably over the next year, especially if their draft pick conveys and opens up that all those assets. I think the deal that might be I don't have like a player, but I think similar to what Cleveland did and bringing in DeAndre Hunter at the trade deadline, like a move like that. Can't say who it would be right now, but you never know, because players come available all the time. Like Book's a great example of that. We didn't think he was going to be available, and now with the disaster in Phoenix, that might change. So yeah, I think this one, it just doesn't feel right to me, but I think there is a deal at some point. But if Langdon like does believe that Booker is the swing that this team should take, like, that, I could potentially be convinced depending on what the package is. I just don't think it's the likely outcome.
Really quick, I want to pull the comparison one more time, because I don't want to let it go. Bradley Beal peaks in his age 27 season. It's like 31 points. Let's see. He was averaging 4 rebounds and 5.5 assists. Devin Booker, age 27, was 27 points. Let's see, 4.5 rebounds and 7 assists. So a little bit more assists. Bradley Beal has not even eclipsed 25 points per game since. It has been a precipitous fall since then with some of those lower body injuries. And Devin Booker, this year he's up at 26, right? So it's not that far of a drop off yet, but he just turned, I think recently, 28. Again, not saying they're the same guys. That would be awful. That would be awful if you get him, you make a big swing, you sell all your assets, you sell the farm, right, to bring him in, and then all of a sudden he's like 18 points per game as a really good shooter. It's like you're getting that from Jaden Ivey, frankly, right now.
I'm so glad you brought up Jaden Ivey, because that was a talking point. I'm sure you guys saw it from radio stations here locally to fans. They think like, oh, we can just trade Jaden Ivey and get Devin Booker and maybe throw in like a Marcus Sasser or something like that and get him, right? Like, that's not going to happen. Like, I guarantee you, if you called Matt Ishbia and the Suns, they'd ask for Cade Cunningham straight up. Like, they're not going to take it boggles my mind every time, like a star, like whether it's Devin Booker, Laurie Markkinen, Jaren Jackson Jr., whatever it may be, like, yeah, we'll just throw like Bobby Klippman and like maybe a first and they'll take it. Like I think sometimes the casual fan doesn't understand, like a player of Booker status, they probably want your best player on this team. And I'm
Yeah,
with you, Wes.
any fair deal for Booker, by the way, is like
Yeah.
Asar Thompson and multiple picks, and that's your
Yeah.
starting point. And is that worth it? I don't know. Like, are you willing to go Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, and 3 first-round picks? Good God, I don't know. I don't think I am. Right? Like these are the deals. These are the trades you'd be talking about. It's not. A trade for Devin Booker is going to rival like what Toronto gave up for Kawhi. Right? It's going to be something like that. It's not cheap at all.
Yeah. And if if Booker does get traded, I think it's 2 Western Conference teams I'd look at. I think it's Houston and OKC because they have the draft capital, they have the young assets, and I feel like those are 2 teams that are like ready to compete for a championship. I think it would be a feel good story. Don't get me wrong. And Blake, you did mention like what the Cavs did with DeAndre Hunter. One guy I have my eye on from the Pelicans is Trey Murphy.
Oh, I would love that. Would they? Do you think they'd
That'd be a
give him
good
up?
one, yeah.
I mean, stuff is going so bad there. Like Zion's probably going to be that experiment's probably going to be done at sometime soon, which is crazy because he just like dominates whenever he plays, but he doesn't play that much.
I just feel like from like beat reporters that I know and cover the team, like they feel like everything's on the table, especially after they got rid of Ingram, which was a big headache for them. Zion obviously is playing really good ball right now, but how long is that going to last? You got like Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado. Like you have some players that I think Trajan is probably really familiar with, and it wouldn't surprise me if he tried to poach a guy that he drafted that he's pretty familiar with to bring him here, because he only really gave Tobias a 2-year kind of deal, and maybe you want to get a little bit younger and have that Tobias replacement.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that would be a heck of a move, especially if like you turn it next year, like Tobias's 26 million is expiring, and then you can throw in a couple picks too. That would be interesting, and I mean that's definitely one I would keep up on. I know like there's Herb Jones there too. I'm not sure what his situation is. I mean, he's out for the rest of the year, but yeah, one of those New Orleans wings would be great.
Am I crazy for not hating the idea of Zion at the right price? Like, let me know if I'm nuts.
I mean, he's
it's
dominant
the health
when he's
But exactly, that's the thing. Like, imagine Zion Williamson next to Cade playing kind of that combo on-off ball role as a 4. You could theoretically stick Asar Thompson next to him, which really covers up some of the defensive side of things. I don't know who you have to give up. Maybe Ron Holland's gone. Maybe Jaden Ivey's gone. The Pelicans maybe could be interested in Duren. I don't know. Right. But like, it's just like a core 3 group of guys. If he's healthy, good God.
I think when he's healthy, you could argue he's one of the best players in basketball. Like just what he can do. It's incredible. My only thing is not the basketball stuff. It's the lifestyle in Detroit. And I never like to have those comparisons. But if you followed Zion's career, you know that Coney Island would smack. And then like the nightlife style. I'm not going to get into that. But if you know, especially if you remember some former Pistons and their nightlife style. But I feel like Zion needs to get out of New Orleans. Like if he went to Phoenix, I feel like it would just like. Something about being in Phoenix, players get healthy. I don't know what it is. I feel like maybe that's a team that goes for Devin Booker. Maybe the Pelicans just get desperate and say, "Hey, give us Zion." I bet you Matt Ishbia would do something like that.
No, for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I'll just say with Zion, or I mean, truthfully, other players like it. If we like throw away the health concerns, I think that maybe we should have some openness to off-court stuff, maybe like an off-court reclamation, because one, that's going to push down price, right? So you'd be able to get access to a type of player via trade where you otherwise maybe could not. But two, man, we're the Detroit Pistons. we got a history of this, right? I mean, we're talking about we had Sean Windsor on the Pistons Pulse the other day talking about the history and some of the parallels with the young bad boys when they were starting to really hit their stride, come into their own with this team, this Pistons team as well. You could think back to like '04. What was the thing that puts them over the top? Rasheed Wallace, who was viewed as locker room cancer. We've got a long history of grabbing guys who look like they've got a lot of personality red flags, but they come to Detroit and you know what? Like it gets figured out and the fit's perfect. So I think maybe we'd be a little bit more open to that. Health is different, but locker room red flags? I don't know. I trust Cade Cunningham and JB and the locker room that those guys have built a lot at this point.
I don't think he'd be a locker room red flag. I think it was just like the nightlife style from like what I've heard.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
From people down there. Like as a basketball player, I'm with you. Like he's just dominant. I remember even before Cade got drafted, he was like raving about Zion. He was just like I like watching Zion play a lot. Like just the way he plays. If you guys haven't seen that podcast, it was with when JJ Redick wasn't actually a coach. Kind of wild to think about.
Was that the like pre-draft pod?
Yeah,
that Cade did with him. That was a great episode. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I actually watched it. It popped up on my YouTube algorithm like recently. Like I've been getting like a bunch of old videos. Like I got Jason Tatum how to tie a tie the other day. I was just like, dude, what is going on?
That's a classic. That's a classic. I've been watching some of like the JJ LeBron podcasts like since he was hired as the Lakers coach. Crazy how fast things change, which is like sort of goes into the Booker conversation. Whatever trade the Pistons would make, I bet it's like someone who's not even on our radar right now.
Yeah, like watch it be like Anthony Davis or something like that.
Oh God,
health. Talk about health. Yeah, I was about to say. Oh Lord,
I would donate my
great option too.
Great option if he's willing to play the 5.
Yeah.
If he continues down this path of no, I'm a 4. Okay, AD.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure. You do that somewhere else.
That quote from Jeannie Buss, I thought it was NBA Central. I was like, "There's no way that's real. There's no way."
Wait, which one was it?
Jeannie Buss did like an interview with I can't remember what publication, but like she was basically saying like Anthony Davis was just like didn't want to play the 5 and like we were like
that's been his whole career. He doesn't want to play the 5. He came in thinking he's a 4 and he doesn't want to let it go. Someone tell Anthony Davis that the traditional power forward is dead. Please. I don't get it. Like he's a modern 5. Who is he banging with? Right? Like there's no Shaq. There's no health concern here. What is he thinking? I don't know.
Maybe Zach Edey. I mean, like outside of that, like really.
Yeah. You know, Donovan Clingan in the post really strikes fear into Anthony Davis, I guess.
Oh my.
Come on.
Oh man. Well, I appreciate you guys coming on. I always have such a great time talking with you. But I do want to give you guys the floor to plug and promote the Pindown and where people can support and follow you guys at.
Blake's the man for that. So.
Oh gosh, I'll try to get everything. Wes, definitely add anything I miss at the end. But no, Anthony, thank you for having us on again. It's always a blast. We'll have to do a crossover on the Pindown soon here too. But yeah, you can find us on the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel. We go live. It's different in the season, but normally Thursday evenings, depending on the Pistons schedule. Check out all the great work that Sean Corp, the different writers at Detroit Bad Boys are putting up on DetroitBadBoys.com. Check out everything that Wes is doing as the producer for the Pistons Pulse with Omari and Bryce. Also, another shameless plug for myself. I had an article go up on SportsIllustrated.com today about the reasons behind the Pistons like emergence. So feel free to check that out. Honestly, anyone that's listening to this podcast, it's more for people who are like looking at the standings and like, wait, why are the Pistons good again? So it's all stuff that everyone here and listening knows, but another shout out there too. And also just the Motor City Hoop Substack that Bryce is doing with some other contributors too. I know that was a whole heck of a lot. So Anthony, shout out to you for giving us a couple minutes there at the end to plug everything too. And Wes, if I forgot anything, please add it.
Only one thing, and of course, yeah, Anthony, thank you. We love coming on this Pistons Talk podcast. It's a great time. We'll definitely have to get you on ours as well. But the only thing you forgot, 313-355-2717. Jot that down, Pistons Talk listeners. If you're tuning into the Pindown, or if we put out that bat signal for the mailbag, you can give that number a call, leave a voicemail message. We will play it on the show. So it's kind of a fun little thing. It's our favorite little bit that we get to do for the Pindown. We actually get to hear our listeners, which is pretty unique. So we have a lot of fun with that one.
Oh, that's awesome. I do have all your guys' social media links down in the description below for people that are watching live on YouTube. So we have the Detroit Bad Boys YouTube channel where you guys can watch Blake and Wes do the Pindown podcast. We have Blake's Twitter in the description below. We have Wes's Twitter in the description below. But definitely check them out. They do great work over the Detroit Bad Boys. I do have a bone to pick with Sean Corp. You got to bring back the Pistons Twitter awards now that the Pistons are good again.
My gosh. Yeah.
We haven't had it since Nick Henkel won it. Like shout out to Motown Noah. We have not had it.
Holy cow. Wow.
Yeah. I miss I miss that. I think Sean did say that it hasn't been done because there wasn't a reason. So now that they're good again, I feel like is definitely the reason to do it. So we'll have to bring that up.
We'll have to talk to him. That's prime off-season content right there.
I'm telling you, man. Yeah. Dog days of off season. You do like Pistons Twitter awards. Like
we don't have a draft pick in the first round. I mean, this is the year.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I don't know what I'm going to talk about this summer, you guys. I have no idea.
And I love it. I love that that's the reality.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you guys coming on as always. But we're going to end this podcast. Got 400 people in here in mid-afternoon. Had some people say that I'm watching at work right now. Just got off of work. So I got dedication. Got people in here. But we'll see you guys. I think Pistons play Saturday, Sunday. I believe they got a back-to-back with the Warriors and the Blazers. So we'll see you guys on those post-game podcasts immediately after the game. But until next time, you guys, peace. Go Pistons. Take care.